Welcome to Fun and Games Side Quests. Every episode is a different host sharing a video game they love and why they love it.
Hey everybody, my name is Dave Jackson, and today I'm going to be talking about Shadowrun Dragonfall. I am the host of a podcast called Tales from the Backlog, which is a weekly video games review style podcast. And the thing that I think sets my show apart a little bit is that my show is totally spoiler-free for about usually the first 2/3 or so. We'll go through the game review style, talk about mechanics and story and stuff like that without spoilers, so that even if you haven't played the game, you can get a good sense for like what this game is about without getting spoiled. And then there's a very clear spoiler wall in every episode, after which we go full bore on spoilers. So check out Tales from the Backlog if you want more of this. Today I'm going to be talking about Shadowrun Dragonfall, kind of in my Tales from the Backlog format, so no spoilers today either, because I really do hope people check out this game. This game is really good, and I just don't hear a lot of people talk about it. It kind of gets like lost in the, CRPGs are not a totally super popular genre anyway, but even among the titans of the CRPG genre, like the Divinity Original Sins and stuff like that, I don't hear a lot of people talk about Shadowrun. So today, I want to talk about it. This is Shadowrun Dragonfall, developed by Harebrained Schemes, released for PC in 2014, and the Shadowrun games have existed before. I know there's one on like the Genesis, there's one on the Super Nintendo, but then I believe there was a Kickstarter to bring these to, like the modern PC environment as a CRPG. And if you're not a PC gamer, these games are will be released by the time you hear this for consoles as part of this Shadowrun Trilogy Pack. The Trilogy Pack includes Shadowrun Returns, the original Kickstarted game, Shadowrun Dragonfall, which is the one I'm going to talk about today, and Shadowrun Hong Kong. And of those, I've played Dragonfall and Hong Kong. I think they're both great. I haven't played Returns yet, but I will sometime. So this is set in the Shadowrun tabletop universe, which if you have played, you know all about it. If you haven't, it's like a mix of cyberpunk and traditional fantasy stuff like elves, dwarves, orcs, dragons, etc., etc. And this game is called Dragonfall, so dragons are a big part of this one. Something really interesting in this world is that like there are dragons, but they're not like Game of Thrones dragons. They're kind of more like the Hobbit dragons, but even more involved. So like they fly around and shoot fire and do dragon stuff, but they also hold great political power, and they're like extremely intelligent, creatures. And whenever there's like something weird happening around the world, where it feels like people are being controlled and stuff like that, chances are there's a dragon that's the one pulling the strings, like that, in the Shadowrun world. And I just think that's really cool. And so in Dragonfall, this is set in the Free State of Berlin. So these games are also set in real-world locations. Berlin, I've been to Berlin. I don't recognize Berlin in the game itself. Shadowrun Hong Kong, though, it's set in the Kowloon walled city. So these are real places, just with this kind of fantasy and cyberpunk spin on it. In this game, you are a mercenary joining a crew, kind of like this for your first run with this crew. But during this heist that your crew is on, the leader dies in a very mysterious way. So yada, 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 you become the leader of the crew. And this is one of the things I like the most about this game is that the crew, the party members that you have that go out on these missions with you, are so good. It's when we think about RPG parties, we usually think of JRPG stuff, right? The Final Fantasy VII party is iconic. This Shadowrun Dragonfall party is so good. They're all so likable. And if you choose to engage with them, talk to them between missions, learn about their backstories and stuff like that, some of them have very good stories and character development that is just, it's really awesome. You really love this crew that you go out on these missions with, and it's one of the strongest parts of this game. You and your crew have to take on jobs to earn money. You are a mercenary group, basically. And what you're trying to do at the beginning of the game is pay for information about what happened to the old leader. Why did they die? This was not supposed to go like this. So you're trying to figure out what's going on with that. And then you're trying to learn about something that's like eventually threatening at least the Free State of Berlin and possibly a bigger area. This is your home. You'll spend a lot of time going around, I think they call it the Kreuzbazaar, like the kind of hub area in the game where all of these NPCs are populating it. And you really do feel like a very protective instinct over this area because the world is a mess. But this little area, this is home. These are your people. And when that becomes threatened, you do get this instinct to protect it, and it's really good. As this is a CRPG, you pick your character class, and, like a tabletop RPG, you assign stats to your character. You pick a kind of starting... It's not like a class because you're not locked into that, but you pick like a starting loadout for where you want your stats to be allocated at the beginning. And another thing I really like about this game is it's a very light CRPG. This is not as complicated as playing Divinity Original Sin. This is not as complicated as playing D&D. If you've ever played that, you know how many things you have to keep track of. This is pretty elegant. That's the word. Not too much to overwhelm you. So if you're listening to this and you think like, I've never played Baldur's Gate, I've never played D&D, Divinity Original Sin, even Disco Elysium, this is much simpler than those games. And I think it's a good starter if this is your first game of this type to play. So you are basically going around, you're having lots of conversations. There is a lot of choice in dialogue, especially if you have the right stats to help you pass a certain dialogue check. Or if you get to choose some affiliations, my character is good at talking with police, for example. So if you talk to a police officer, maybe you'll have a special dialogue option that will help you maybe avoid combat or something like that. So it's just very elegant. I think that's the word I'm going to use here. So most of the game is going to be talking with people. Sometimes you'll have these hacking sections. Certain character classes called Deckers can hack into electronic sections, and you will kind of send a projection of yourself into the network, Mega Man Battle Network style, if people have played that. And you do little combats in there, solve little puzzles to access files, unlock doors, etc., etc. But the meat of this gameplay, and I think the thing that I remember the most, is the combat. So this is XCOM-esque. If you've played XCOM, you know exactly what this is. It is turn-based, it is cover-based, percentage to hit based, with melee weapons, guns, magic spells. You can summon stuff, you can buff your characters since this is a magical world too. Also governed by the amount of actions you can do in one turn. Very you can run a certain distance and then shoot, or you can run very far, but then you can't shoot anymore. Stuff like that. And the thing I like about this is it's not super difficult. You're not going to be failing or losing people all the time like you might in XCOM, but you do need to strategize. And I think that this game strikes a really good balance between making you strategize, but also not crushing you under its feet. And you have a highly capable crew. You are a highly capable character. By the end of the game, your characters are so powerful, it's a lot of fun to play around with the abilities and stuff like that. And it's just, it's a very fun, tactical combat system. And that is Shadowrun Dragonfall. This is a game that I hope people check out. It's not a very long game. If I say computer RPGs, you might think, oh, Divinity Original Sin, that game takes 125 hours to play. This isn't really like that. It takes maybe 25 hours to play through. Same with Shadowrun Hong Kong, and Shadowrun Returns is even a little bit shorter than that. So if you're like me and you really value a game that's not going to take 125 hours to complete, try out Shadowrun Dragonfall. I really hope you do. I hope these console releases bring these games to a wider audience because I think that they are deserving. The combat is great. The story is cool. The characters that you have on your crew are like just so good. You have such a good dynamic with them, and the development that they go through. It's like what people praise Mass Effect for. It's here in Shadowrun Dragonfall too. So I really hope people check this out. Once again, my name's been Dave Jackson. Check out Tales from the Backlog if you want more video game stuff. Happy gaming.
Hi, I'm Matt, aka Stormageddon, and I'm the host of CPOV Autographs at certainpov.com. It is a bi-weekly interview series where I interview folks from all over the arts, from writers to comedians to magicians to musicians, even actors, historians, podcasters, pretty much anyone who's willing to chat with me for a little bit. If you like interesting conversations with even more interesting people, go to certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts. And remember, music is life, and life is good.
CPOV.
certainpov.com.